So, welcome once again. We'll continue part B. Let's continue part B. And in part 2A, we discussed where we stopped was David as someone who makes musical instruments. That was where we stopped, and that was the third point. David makes musical instruments. Now, let's go to number 4. David as a father. That is number 4. So, if you're a true father or not, we can look at your children to determine that, right? So, respectfully speaking, I know that there are men who sincerely labor and pour out their best for their children to see that they are well trained. But sadly and painful enough, these children do not yield or live to expectation, even despite all their efforts, all the roles and everything. But on the other hand, we have seen children that become the best they can be in life. And you can trace that result to the kind of upbringing they had, the kind of upbringing that they had through their parents. So you can be a father, a good father or a bad father. It is in two dimensions. So have you ever seen young people who are well behaved, and when people talk about them, they will say those children were well brought up, meaning that they are giving credit to their parents for good upbringing. So parenting requires sacrifice, most times difficult sacrifice. If a father plays his fatherly role well, we can know by looking at the child and the whole family too. Now, I want to begin to show you how that David was a good father. So let's open your Bible to 1 Chronicles chapter 28 verse 9 to 10. Now let me begin to read. And thou, Solomon my son, know thou the God of thy father, and serve him with a perfect heart and with a willing mind. For the Lord searcheth all hearts, and understand all the imaginations of the thoughts. If thou seek him, he will be found of thee. But if thou forsake him, he will cast thee off forever. Verse 10. Take heed now, for the Lord hath chosen thee to build an house for the sanctuary. Be strong and do it. Now, the discussion here in this verse that I just read was between David and Solomon. And if you check properly, you will notice how that David was trying to pass on his legacy to his son. Know the God that I know. Serve him with perfect mind. That was what David was telling his son. Here, 1 Chronicles 28 verse 9 to 10. And thou, Solomon my son, know thou the God of thy father. Means that know the God that I know, because it is his father that is speaking to him now. So it means know the God that I know and serve him with a perfect mind. Verse 10 reveals how David began to encourage Solomon. Verse 10 of where I just read, which says, take it now, for the Lord hath chosen thee to build an house for the sanctuary. So this place reveals how David began to encourage Solomon for his purpose in life. Paraphrasing, apart from being a king, let me paraphrase now what that place is trying to say. Meaning that David is saying, apart from being a king, the Lord has chose you to build an house for the sanctuary. This is your purpose. So be strong while fulfilling it. It's also the same thing as what David is saying there in verse 10. Now, for a father to pass his legacies to his children and also mentor them for purpose fulfillment, you can know that such a father is very intentional about the child. Let's read Proverbs 4:3 and Proverbs chapter 4 verse 3 to 9. For another example of David's fatherhood on Solomon, maybe that place, if it's not good enough example. Verse 3, let me begin to read from verse 3. Proverbs chapter 4 verse 3. Verse 3 now. For I was my father's son, tender and only beloved in the sight of my mother. For I too was a son to my father, still tender and cherished by my mother. Okay, the first line that I read now, that one is KJV, verse 3. For I was my father's son, tender and only beloved in the sight of my mother. Now let's read NIV of that same verse 3. It means, for I too was a son to my father, still tender and cherished by my mother. Do you know what the word still tender, do you know what it means? Now here, who is speaking here in this Proverbs chapter 4 verse 3? The person speaking here is Solomon. Of course, we all know that it is Solomon that wrote Proverbs. So it is Solomon that is speaking here. Now he said, I too was a son to my father, still tender. So I want to explain that tender. Do you know what still tender means? It means when you are still young. So Solomon was saying, when I was still tender, when I was still at the age of when I was still young, at the tender age, the age of around 6 years downward, that is what is considered tender age. From age 6 to downwards, 5 to 5, 4, 3, 6 years, 5 years, 4 years, that is what is considered tender age. Now follow me. Verse 4. He taught me also and said unto me, let thine hearts retain my words, keep my commandments and live. Now Solomon in verse 3 told us that in his tender age, maybe I should read it again if you forgot in verse 3. For I was my father's son, tender and only beloved. Tender. So during while he was tender, we will now read verse 4. He taught me also and said unto me, let thine heart retain my words. So he's saying that my father, he means my father. So who is Solomon's father? It is David, of course. So Solomon is making us understand that David taught him something while he was at a tender age. So while Solomon was at about the age of 6 years below, he was saying that David taught him something. Now, what did David taught him? We'll read there, but let me emphasize on this verse 4. So that verse 4 again, if we read that place together, then we can begin to see that place Solomon was narrating a mentorship session that his father David had with him. And surprisingly, that session took place when he was at a tender age. Now, if we begin to read further, it will surprise you to see how complex the mentorship that David was giving to a child at a tender age, at a very young age. You will see how complex that mentorship is. Yet after several years, Solomon became matured, and when he would write the book of Proverbs, he still remembered everything that his father taught him. I hope God is granting you understanding. So let me take verse 4 again. He taught me also and said unto me, this is verse 4. Then let's go to verse 5. Get wisdom, get understanding. Now, I don't know, maybe you understand what I've been trying to say so far. Okay, let me start from verse 3. Verse 3 says, this is Solomon speaking now. Verse 3. For I too was a son to my father. This is Solomon speaking. I was a son to my father, still tender, meaning when I was still very young. Now let's move to verse 4. So when I was still very young, he taught me also, meaning that he, my father, David, taught me. Now, then verse 5. He taught me that what did he teach me? We will now see what David taught Solomon. We'll begin to see it from verse 5. Now, he says, that verse 5 now says, get wisdom, get understanding, forget it not, neither decline from the words of my mouth. Now, do you know that? Okay, then verse 6 again. This is continuity of what everything David taught Solomon here, that Solomon was trying to tell us. So, forsake her not, verse 6, I'm reading. Please have your Bible with you and open and read. Follow up with me. Forsake her not, and she shall preserve thee, love her rather, and she shall keep. Verse 7. Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. Now, let me bring your attention to something. Do you know that this verse 7 that says wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding? Do you know that it is a very popular verse, and we usually think that it is Solomon that wrote that thing? Now, Solomon is not actually the one who authored this thing. What he's trying to say here is that this is what my father told me. He told me that I should get wisdom. Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, so you can see that this popular verse, it was David that taught. It was one of the things that David taught Solomon, that he wrote in that Proverbs. It's not actually Solomon that invented this thing. It was David that taught him, and he was now narrating what David taught him when he was young. He was trying to narrate it. That was how this verse came up. That he said, wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. Verse 8. Exalt her, and she shall promote thee. She shall bring thee to honor when thou dost embrace her. Verse 9. She shall give to thine head verse 9. She shall give to thine head an ornament of grace, a crown of glory shall she deliver to thee. So you can see the kind of mentorship David gave to his child Solomon at a very young age in those previous Bible verses that I just read now. Now, for you to have another understanding of this, if you go back to that Proverbs chapter 4, if we start from verse 1, you will see something like, hear ye children the instruction of a father, and attend to no understanding. So in that verse 1, David is also trying to mentor some children, because he said, hear ye children the instruction of a father. So it means he's trying to mentor children too in that place. And he now went to adopt what David taught him to teach the children he wants to teach also. Do you get what I'm saying? Solomon in verse 1, in chapter 4 verse 1, he is trying to mentor some children. That was why he said, hear ye children the instruction of a father. So he's trying to mentor. So while he was now trying to mentor them, he now went to adopt the mentorship that his father taught him when he was still at the tender age. That was why he was saying, for I was my father's son, still tender, still young, and he taught me that. Verse 4, verse 5, then he taught me wisdom is the principal thing. Sure you get? I hope you are getting now. The proof that you are a good father is if your children can adopt your mentorship and upbringing syllabus. Can your children use the style that you used to train them, can they use it to train their own children too? That is what I'm saying. So this is, you can see that same thing is what Solomon is doing here. What David used to train Solomon, to teach Solomon also adopted it and is trying to use it to teach some other children here. I hope you are following me. Is God granting you understanding? So it shows that if your children can adopt your own template and your syllabus to train their own children too, it shows that your template is very effective. Have you ever heard ladies that say, I pray not to marry a man like my father? This is because the daughter had carefully examined her father and realized that she don't want to give the kind of father to her children too. She don't want to give that kind of father that she has to her own children. So she want to avoid any man like her father at all costs. But when you see a lady say, I pray to God to give me a man like my father, it means that apart from just wanting a husband like her father, she wants her children to enjoy the kind of fatherhood she enjoyed. So David was a very good father, to the extent that Solomon adopted his templates and used it to train the next generation, and it was also captured in the Bible for many of us to be mentored through it. So another thing I want to point out is that the things that David used to mentor Solomon at a tender age, Solomon used them to mentor children who are much older, because in that verse 1, if you could remember, that verse 1 of Proverbs chapter 4 verse 1, he said children. He didn't say tender children. He said children. So the people that Solomon was trying to mentor was children, and he went to adopt the syllabus that his father used to mentor him while he was at a tender age. So I hope you can see the difference. So you can use complex teachings to mentor children who are more matured, right? But if you are to use that same teaching to mentor very younger children, then you will have to be very skillful with it. So if David could successfully use what was adopted as a standard to teach more mature children, to teach Solomon at his tender age, and Solomon would understand it perfectly, to the extent that he was able to use it to teach other children years later, then you should know that David is very good in training and mentorship. Now what I'm trying to say is that I need you to understand what I'm trying to say. Let's say Solomon at a tender age is 6 years old. Solomon's tender age is 6 years old, Abby. And let's say the children Solomon referred to in Proverbs chapter 4 verse 1, let's say they were much more older, because Solomon did not describe them as tender children. He called them children, right? And Solomon called, so let's picture those children around the age of maybe 12 to down to 7 years, age of 12 down to 7 years. So Solomon is trying to teach now, trying to mentor children of age of 7 to 12 years, right? Children of 7 to 12 years old, he's trying to mentor them. Then David now mentored Solomon, which was a child of 6 years old, below, on the same subjects. How do I put this for you to understand? Okay, you know that I told you that Solomon went to adopt the same thing that David used to teach him, that he went to narrate it to teach the children he also wanted to teach. Now let's picture the children that Solomon was trying to teach there in that Proverbs chapter 4 verse 1. Let's picture them at around the age of 12 to 7 years. The children he was speaking to, let's picture them at around age 12 to 7 years. Now then let's picture Solomon at his tender age, at his own tender age. Let's picture him at the age of 6 years downwards, and he said, my father taught me these things at my tender age. That thing that his father taught him at his own tender age, at age 6 downwards, he's now using that same thing to go and teach children of age 12 down to age 7. So you can see the difference. It's just like you are trying to teach SS3 students, primary 5 students. You have 2 teachers, or you are teaching, you want to teach primary 5 students a subject. Or let's say you have a subject, or you have a topic, and you want to you taught primary 1 students that topic, right? And then, or maybe let's say there are 2 teachers that are being given the same subject to teach children, or they are being given the same topic to teach to children, and then they tell one to teach primary 1 student that same subject or that same topic, and then they tell another teacher, the second teacher, to go and teach that same topic to primary 5. You know that those who are primary 5, they are more mature, they will understand better than the primary 1 own. So now let's say the teacher that is assigned to teach primary 1 that same topic successfully teach them and they understand. So it means that teacher has skills, he has expertise, he knows what he's doing. So this was what happened there. I pray God grant you understanding. Now we've established the fact that it was David that told Solomon to get wisdom. Proverbs 4:7 now, Proverbs chapter 4 verse 17. It was David that taught Solomon. It has been revealed now, right, that it was David that taught Solomon that wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. Will it mean this was the reason why even after years later when Solomon encountered God, the only thing he could ask for was an understanding heart. Because don't forget, verse 7 says, wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, and with all that getting, get understanding. That was one of the things that David taught him. And then when Solomon now encountered God, now he gave me understanding. So it means that Solomon picked that thing that David taught him. It was still in his mind, that even after growing up, several years later after growing, he still held on to that teaching. So it means that Solomon was still reflecting on his father's advice. So that advice sank so much into his head that when God would give him a blank check, all he could ask for was, understanding. If you begin to mentor a child from a tender age, and after they grew up, that thing you told them to do was what. Now, if you begin to mentor a child from a tender age and they grew up, and that thing that you mentored them on, everything you taught them, the things you taught them, it is that thing that they began to, follow up with, or it is that mentorship that they began to act on in their lives even after growing up. It really means you are a good mentor. From one generation to another, parenting has always been a very challenging assignment to most people. You see people go online to search on different kinds of subjects on parenting and how to better navigate through difficulties and challenges that come with parenting office. So even in those ancient times, we've seen that it can be very difficult to get children to be obedient to their parents, right? An example are the sons of Eli. So these children, the sons of Eli, they were so rebellious to the extent that they caused their lineage to lose the covenant that God had with them. Though we know that Solomon later backslid, but at least it didn't happen while David was still alive. Unlike Eli, though Eli was still alive, but his children engaged in all sorts of wicked activities. So I'm just letting you to know that how strong David's mentorship on Solomon was for him. Now, other qualities of a good father are compassion and a forgiving heart. Let's look at that again. So we saw that something happened after Absalom was killed in battle when he rebelled against David. You know that Absalom, one of David's children, one of David's son, he rebelled against him, and then along the line he was killed in battle. Then David now began to lament and mourn over him. Despite what Absalom did to David, he dethroned David. Absalom dethroned David. He slept with his father's wife. Absalom dethroned David. He slept with David's concubine. Don't forget, David is his father. So he slept with his father's concubines publicly, and he even tried to kill his father. So despite doing all these things, you would think that David will hate him with compassion. You would think that David should have a strong resentment for him, but the Bible recorded that David began to weep and said it would have been better that he, David, should have been the one to die in Absalom's position. So that shows how far a father can forgive as long as he's a good father. So when people were crucifying Jesus, he said, Father, forgive them. He didn't call any other name of God and say, forgive them. He didn't say, Yahweh, forgive them. But he said, Father, forgive them. Because he knew that it is that father dimension of God that has a large heart to forgive. Anytime God will punish Israelites, the Bible will say, the anger of the Lord was kindled against them, and God punished them. Those are the things the Bible usually say. You will hardly hear anything like, and the Father punished them. No, because that father dimension of God is readily available to forgive. So, proof that you are a good father is that you have a forgiving heart, and then that you are good in mentorship. So we saw the kind of mentorship that David has been giving Solomon since he was young, since at a tender age. Right? We saw how he tried to pass his legacy to the child by saying that you are meant to build the house of God, and he was encouraging him doing, and then Solomon built it. Have we not seen different kinds of father? Have we not seen, situations where even after a father will try his best on their children, that this is what I want you to become, this is your purpose in life, and I've helped you, and I've tried to help you to this stage, follow up with it, and then the children will still be doing nonsense here and there rather. So now, on a scale of 1 to 100, you can boldly say that David also did well as a father, right? So this guy began to mentor Solomon from tender age down to when he became king. So now let's move on to David as an architect. 1 Chronicles chapter 28, verse 11. I read, Then David gave to Solomon his son the pattern of the porch, and of the houses thereof, and of the treasuries thereof, and of the upper chambers thereof, and of the inner palace thereof, and of the place of the mercy seats. Who are architects? Now, architects are people who designs buildings or structures, or people who prepares the plan of a construction. Those are the people who are called architects. Now, Solomon was meant to build the house of God, right? So David began to give him the designs of the house. It was David that began to give him the designs of the house, the patterns of the porch, how he would build the treasuries, how he would design the chambers, the parlors, and so on. It was David that gave him all those designs. Now the question is, who gives such complex design and description of a building that is about to be constructed, if not that they have experience in construction? Now, put yourself in that shoe. Someone wants to build the house, right? And you are not an architect, and you now begin to give them very accurate design that this is where the parlor will be, this is where the chambers will be, this is where the treasuries, like this is where the toilet will be. You begin to give them the design that they now eventually use that design, the design you give them, they now eventually use it to build that house, and they built it and it was successful. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? And you are not an architect. You know that is not possible for you. It's not possible because you are not an architect. So for David to be able to give Solomon the design that this is how you will design it, and they built on that design, so you can see that David is also operating on another skill level now. Now, another thing that surprised me is that David received the patterns of this old building. He received them by the Spirit. If you read verse 12, you will see it there. Verse 12 of that 1 Chronicles chapter 28, you will see there that yet this man was able to properly communicate it to the builders. He received this design, he received them by the Spirit, and he was still able to communicate it. Now let me explain this to you to understand what I'm trying to communicate very well. Let me give an example. There was a time God led me to get a musical instrument. So after I bought the instruments, I have not yet enrolled for a professional tutorial on how to begin to play the musical instrument, right? But once in a while, I will pick it up, and I will begin to play it. I will begin to play the instrument, even despite that I've not, enrolled for training on how to play it or whatever. So, you can play keyboard or you can play guitar without learning it, right? Just that the difference between you and the person that learned it is that you will be playing nonsense, and the person that learned it will be playing tunes that make sense, right? That is the difference. But you can still actually press them some strings and everything, even without learning it, and it will make sounds. But just that your sound will not, they won't be perfect enough. So now, while you are making sound with your hands while playing the instrument, the person that learned it is also making sounds. So you that you did not learn it, and you are trying to make sound with it, your sound will not make sense enough like someone that learned it. So yours will not be well coordinated, but his own will be well coordinated. So when I began to play these sounds with the instrument I bought, there was a day, it was like the third time I picked the instrument and played with it. Then I fell asleep. So as I fell asleep, then I placed the instrument beside me and I fell asleep. So it was even during the day, and I had a dream, and I saw someone come, and in that dream somebody came to carry that instrument, and that person began to play with that instrument. Now, this person played a very popular song that I know. He played it with the tune he was playing on the instrument. The tune he was playing on the instrument, he used it to play a very popular song. Now, another thing I noticed was that the instrument now changed form to another shape I've never seen before. The instrument itself, the one I saw in that vision, it was in another form, apart from what I've not seen, So the strings, they were different, they were placed differently, So now, after the person played instrument, the person played a song with that instrument that I placed beside me. So I now woke up. Now, do you know that if I have learned how to play the instrument professionally, if I've learned how to play it, I would have been able to describe the type of keys and the chords that the person that picked up this instrument beside me and played it in the vision. The keys he played, the chords he played, I would have been able to play it when I woke up, because I would know the chords, and she gets, because I've learned it, I would know. So when I woke up, I can just carry it and say, okay, this is what he played, and then I can replay it. But because I was not yet a professional, I've not learned how to play the instrument. I was only using my hands to press on strings. So all I could just do was sing the song with my mouth. But the more complex part, which involves me, playing the keys and the chords, those ones I could not attempt it, right? So now, what am I trying to bring out? David saw the house of God by the Spirit. So David, having saw the house of God by the Spirit, didn't just say, I saw the house, it was painted white, it was very tall and so on. He didn't just give that description. He didn't give a basic description, she get, but he was able to enter into more detailed description that only a professional can do, to the extent that he attempted to assist the person that was supposed to build it by providing professional service of detailed document, by providing professional service of detailed documentation of the plans, the patterns and the designs of the parlors, the chambers and the inner courts and the altars. Now I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say, or why I used that my vision as an example. Let's say, I see the person came beside me and picked up the instruments and played a music with a popular tune. Now let's say this popular tune, if I'm a professional and I want to teach someone to play that same tune ahead in the dream, I want to teach someone to play it, I will be giving the person the chord, how they call this, maybe tonic surfers, the keys, the chords, the do re mi fa sol la, all these things. I will be teaching them this. You will press key A, key B. I will be able to teach them the technical part of it. That is if I had been a professional, if I had learnt it. But because I have not learnt it, I can only sing the song with my mouth. That this was the song I heard, I can only sing it with my mouth, right? So the same thing applies to David. When David saw the house by the Spirit, when he actually saw the kind of house that Solomon is supposed to build by the Spirit, maybe the color of the house is white, maybe the size of the house, maybe it's how do you measure all this size and everything? Maybe it is 6 feet wide, 15 feet tall, So David didn't just wake up and say, I saw the house you are going to build, though. I saw it is white. I saw that there are 2 doors there. I saw that the roof is I saw that it is taller. No, he didn't just say the basic thing. He went into details. He went and said, this is how the altar will be. This is where the chambers will be. This is where the inner court will be. So I'm telling you, all this description that David was giving, they are for they are more detailed. They are technical. They are more technical. And it requires skill to do that. So now remember, I said that the instrument I saw. So remember again, I say something that the instrument I saw that the man play in that my dream beside me. That I said it changed shape. Now the instrument I was talking about is actually a guitar. You know how a guitar looks like, right, Abi? You know how a guitar is, what a guitar looks like. Now, but in that vision that I saw, that the man actually picked the guitar beside me, the actual guitar he plays beside me, he picked it and was playing it. But in that vision, the guitar had already changed shape and it was still working. It was still playing the songs it was playing and it has already changed shape. And the shape was not like the shape of any guitar that has ever been, it's not like the shape of any guitar I've ever seen. And there's no kind of guitar like that. So the strings on the one I saw, they were already extended to another part. Now, if I'm into manufacture, do you know that thing that I saw? If I'm someone that manufactures musical instruments, if I build musical instruments, you know that shape that I saw, that new shape that I saw that guitar take, I can actually replicate it in real life after waking up. Do you know that this is how professionals, this is how they invent new equipments and techs? That they actually get some of these breakthroughs that they bring, these new ideas. Some of them they pick it up from the realm of the spirit. Some of them see it as vision. Even the inspiration they have, it is from their mind. So something spiritual is projected onto their mind before they can pick it up. Now, if I had been someone who maybe I have an understanding of how to create musical instruments, that shape that I saw, I could actually use it to invent a new kind of guitar that people will be using today. So, but because I'm not into making musical instruments and I'm not even a professional player, so I was limited. The only thing I could do was to sing the song with my mouth. I couldn't invent a new kind of guitar with a new shape, and I could not even play the song that was played in that vision. I could not play it with my hands on the string. So can you see the limitations now? And because David was not bound by such limitations, he was able to go into details. This was why I'm saying David actually functioned as an architect. Now, if it had been someone else now what I'm saying in essence is that if David does not have in-depth experience in construction and architecture, he will not be able to describe the patterns he saw. The patterns of the house he saw by the Spirit, he will not be able to describe it in designs and in plans. So he will have just described, chances are he will have just described the house like any ordinary person. He will have just said the house I saw, it was painted white, it has 20 windows, it has 5 doors, and that is all. So I hope you understand why I classified David as that thing is an architectural work. Now, can you say that ever since you've been sleeping and dreaming in your life, you've not seen a house before? Now, if you see a house in your dream and you wake up, have you ever been able to narrate it in details that you will say, this house, so this is where the house I saw, this is where the altar is, this is where the chamber is, this is where the treasury is. And after describing it, someone now builds a complete house on that plan that you gave from the dream. So you can see that level of exploit is on another level. I just pray God is granting us understanding. Now, I say David is an architecture, right? So how did he become that? How did he have that skill or that knowledge of being an architecture. Let's look at it. 1 Chronicles 28 in verse 19. Let's read verse 19. It says, all this David said, I have in writing as a result of the Lord's hand on me, and he enabled me to understand all the details of the plan. This is NIV. Now let's read Amplified. All this, said David, the Lord made me understand in writing by his hand upon me all the work and details to be done according to the plan, according to this plan. So you can see that there is a plan. The house has a plan. Do you know what is called plan? Plan for a house is like, the technical structures of the house and everything. That is what is called plan. So he said all these things that the Lord made him understand it in writing by his hand upon him. So David had understanding of all these things, and the plans and the details of the house. He had understanding by the hand of God. So what this means is that after David saw the house and the plans and the details by the Spirit, after he saw it by the Spirit, maybe through visions or maybe by dreaming, after he saw the house, God still had to take him through some tutorials by writing on. He said he made me understand by his writing upon me. So God did something to David, which is writing upon David, so that I can understand what he saw, so that I can understand the plans, how the plans will be, the details and all the work, so that I can understand everything, where the altar will be, how the layout will be and everything. That was what he was trying to tell us there. That was what God did to him. Now, another way to understand what I'm trying to explain is, let's say they place an architectural document in front of you, and you are seeing the plan, right? So you are seeing the plan, you are seeing the details and the design of the house that is about to be constructed on the document. You are seeing it, they place it in front of you, maybe on a table now. You can see everything, right? But even despite that you are seeing it, despite the fact that you are seeing it, you know that you cannot understand how each component work unless you enroll to become a student of architecture and begin to learn how the components work. It's just like maybe when they it's not everybody that understands. If they place a survey document in front of you, it's not everybody that understands how to read it. Though you are seeing it, you are seeing the lines, your eyes is seeing everything, but you still need a professional surveyor to fully interpret some things to you there. So after David saw the plans of the house, after I saw the details, after I saw how the layout and everything in the Spirit, God still had to begin to write upon him. That was what he told us. God still had to write upon him to give him the understanding. So just like you are seeing an architectural document in front of you, you are seeing room 1, room 2 on the paper, you are seeing guest room, this and that. You still will not understand like a professional would understand it, unless the professional now carries you and begin to explain to you that okay, this is it. Just like a survey document too, when you are seeing the lines, then so streets pass beside this, this is a closer. You may really not understand until because if you understand, then why are there people who specialize in survey work? Are you getting me? So that was what God still had to do to him. So it's not as if David just got the knowledge from anywhere. It was the Lord that gave him that understanding, that architectural understanding. You can see it there. He said it by himself. The Lord made me understand this by his writing upon me. So if you go to verse 12 and read, when David had saw that the house. So these two places we just read they are verse 12 and verse 19 respectively. 1 Chronicles chapter 28 verse 12 and verse 19. So it was in verse 12 that David saw the patterns, the designs, and the plan of the house. He saw them by the Spirit. But in verse 19, now made us understand that all those things he saw by the Spirit. It's not as if he understood them straight away. But the Lord had to begin to write, or to make him understand by writing, before he could understand everything he saw in verse 12. Do you get what happened there now? So for you to have understanding of a subject, a field, or a course, it means you have paid the price to enroll as a student and given the requisite level of attention, focus, and intense study to understand that thing. So if I say I understand medicine, it means I've spent several years in school to learn medicine. If I say I understand law, it means I enrolled as a student and spent years in school to learn law. So if you understand cooking, it means you spend time to learn cooking, right? If you say you understand how to drive, it means you went to driving school. You've given some time, separated some time to learn, to go to driving school and paid the price to learn, right? So when David said he got understanding of the details of the plan in writing, so it means that David was subjected to a text tutorial, because he said it was in writing. The understanding came through writing. Don't forget that when Moses ascended to the mountain, when God wanted to give them laws, God used his hand to write So this was what David was also telling us, that God did something, and that thing was right thing, and that right thing was what brought understanding for him to, actually understand everything he saw by the Spirit. So it means that David was subjected to a text tutorial, TEXT, text tutorial, in order to be able to understand the house he saw. So such a text tutorial like that, you should know that it can't come just in 1 minute, or even in a day, or even you should know that it can't come in 1 minute, right? So though we know that there is a gift of knowing that you can easily, maybe I don't know if you've operated in the prophetic world, you can just be praying and then suddenly you just know something you don't know before. But this one, David told us that it is through writing. So it is not as if God just downloaded the thing into his spirit man. No, it was through writing. So God was writing, right? So that writing is not just a day's writing for him to understand all those how everything, the plan of the house and everything, how it will be laid down for him to understand how he will communicate it to Solomon, and Solomon will eventually build on it. You should know that it's not done in a day. I'm sure it's not even in a week or so. You get. Hope you understand. If you go to Exodus 25 now, even in Moses' own scenario, when God began to teach Moses how to build the temple, it took almost 6 chapters. Go and check from Exodus 25 to 30. Exodus chapter 25 to 30. That is 6 chapters. So even beyond that chapter 30, so in places like chapter 35, chapter 40, you will still see how the explanation of the building of the temple still continued between God and Moses. So God began to explain the explanation of the building of the temple to Moses from Exodus chapter 25 down to Exodus chapter 40. So if teaching Moses how to build a temple could take that long, how much more the building that Solomon built, which supersedes the temple? The building that Solomon built is it surpasses the temple that Moses built. So you should know that those writings that David said. So you should know that those writings that David said, God wrote for him to have an understanding. You should know that they are not a day's writing or explanation. So it took time to subscribe to God's tutorial to learn in writings the understanding of the architectural aspect of the house. So I believe we've done justice to that part. Now, David as a politician, number 6. David as a politician, number 6. We will see this in 2 Samuel chapter 19 verse 14. He won over the hearts of the men of Judah, so that they were all of one mind. They sent word to the king, return, you and all your men. This was when David, this place where I just read, this was when David fled from the palace because of Absalom. Now, after the whole conflict was over and Absalom was dead, David sent word to the people of Judah, and the Bible recorded that he won the hearts of the men of Judah by reason of that word that he sent. For you to get a nation to install you or install you as an authority over them, you will need to know how to get each single one of them to support you and agree. Just like the electoral system these days, where people cast votes for the leader they want. So for you to cast your votes for a politician to become an authority over you, it means that politician has successfully did something to win your heart. Now, if you study the Bible very well and see how politics is being played, first you will notice that there are 2 ways to get to the throne in those days. First way is by being anointed and chosen by God. The second way is to manipulate yourself by playing politics, which involves planning coup to overthrow the existing authority and winning the hearts of the citizens to support you. So when Absalom wanted to ascend to he did something shocking. The Bible record in 2 Samuel chapter 15 that Absalom will go and stand beside the road that leads to the city gate, and he will begin to have a kind of interaction with everyone that came to the king. So eventually the outcome of what Absalom began to do was explained in verse 6 of that 2 Samuel chapter 15, which stated that, and Absalom behaved in this way toward all the Israelites who came to the king asking for justice, and so he stole the hearts of the people of Israel. So all those interactions that Absalom began to have with those people at the city gates, the outcome was that he eventually stole the hearts of all the people. So in those days, the proof that you are a good politician is a question of how many people's hearts you can win. You can either win or steal. And if you desire to be installed as an authority over a territory, you will have to find means to convince the citizens. So because Absalom desired to become king, and he understands that it's either by being anointed or by playing politics, so he resolved to the second one, which is playing politics, because he was not anointed to be king. So then after he stole the hearts of the people, you will see how he began to plan coup to overthrow David. So David did this same thing Now, this was the same thing that David did in 2 Samuel chapter 19 verse 14. And the Bible recorded that he won the hearts of all the people. He won over the hearts of the men of Judah, so that they were all of one mind. They sent word to the king and they told him, return, you and all your men. So David sent a message to the men of Judah, and he won their hearts in return. And all the men, all the citizens there, they told him that, come, return. So that was how he reinstalled him as a king. Now don't forget that there is class to this thing. Absalom stole people's hearts, but David won people's hearts, because this verse says he won over. Okay, maybe you don't get it. Please open your Bible to 2 Samuel chapter, where Absalom, tried to convince people when he was trying to play his own politics. The Bible mentioned it there that Absalom stole their hearts. But for David, in 2 Samuel chapter 19 verse 14, the Bible recorded that David won. He won over the hearts. So he won their hearts. David won their hearts, and Absalom stole their hearts. So there are two different descriptions. When the Bible is giving you this two specific descriptions like this, you should understand that there is something specific there. So you stealing people's hearts mean that you engage in deception. That was why the Bible intentionally, was intentional enough to use that term for Absalom. Winning people's heart means you followed due protocol. So I hope you can see the difference between the two. Someone won people's heart and they reinstalled him as king even after he was being exiled. And then someone, the Bible said, he stole their hearts. So, and I say that the proof that you're a good politician is that you can win the hearts of men. And I showed you how Absalom did that. Though he was stealing their hearts, but he still, he still got to their hearts anyways. Because that was what is needed for him to rise as a leader, to become the leader. So on a scale of 1 to 100, you can rate David as a politician as well. So I personally will rate David 90. David as a mentor, number 7. 1 Samuel chapter 22 verse 1 to 2. I'm reading now. David therefore departed thence and escaped to the cave of Adullam. And when his brethren and all his father's house heard it, they went down thither to him, and everyone that was in distress, and everyone that was in debt. Notice the kind of people that came to him. And everyone that was discontented gathered themselves unto him, and he became a captain over them. And there were with him about 400 men. So here we saw how that all sorts of people, diverse kinds of problems, all sorts of people with problems, people who were in debt, people who were discontented, people who were in distress. You can see the kind of problems they have. So all of them gathered themselves unto him, and he became their cap. Now in 2 Samuel chapter 23 verse 8, we see how that these men that we just described now that came to David, we see how that they became mighty men in 2 Samuel chapter 23 verse 8. Let's read. These were the names of the mighty men whom David had: the Tacomites that sat in the seats, chief among the captains. The same was Adino, his knight. He lifted up his spear against 800 whom he slew at one time. If you read the chapter downwards, you will see the level of exploits this man did. My God, these were people that grew under the mentorship of David. So these were the distressed people, the discontented people, the people who were in debt. So they have now become mighty men in 2 Samuel chapter 23 verse 8. Now today, a mentor wants to mentor a set of people and is selectively handpicking those that have the similitude of someone who has a great potential, because he doesn't want to labor on barren land. Now what I'm saying now is that these days where we are, mentors, people who call themselves mentors. So even if it is me or you just put yourself in that shoe. If you want to mentor someone, you will usually look for someone that you feel like this one, he has a great potential, that if you labor on this one, he has the tendency of becoming great. You are saying that this one has potential, so it's easy for you to carry him and say, okay, I will be your mentor. But someone that doesn't look like they are going to be great, someone that doesn't have semblance of becoming great, who does not have potentials, like this kind of people who are in distress, people who are in debt, people who are discontented. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. What I'm trying to say is that normally, if you want to act as a mentor, you will want to look for people who has a good intellectual capacity, because you know that if you labor on those ones, they will easily reflect your work and reflect your labor, right? Unlike people who are already in some kind of emotional damage already, people who are in distress. So you will be wondering, where do I even start from on these people? They are in debt. Everybody is calling them here and there. Come and pay. So you won't even want to associate yourself with them. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So, but now in the case of David, how do you volunteer to carry people who are very broken already and mentor them? People who don't even know what to do with their lives again. Not people who are already on track, but just need a few more mentorship here and there. I hope you are following. So you see an organization now. Maybe an organization wants to give scholarship programs to students, and they begin to selectively gather only brilliant students. Maybe you will understand this with this example I'm trying to make. If someone says, I want to give scholarship, and then they say you must pass an exam before they give you scholarship. Now, what they are saying is that we want to see that you have sense before we help you. We don't just want to. So it means that if you cannot pass that exam, forget about the sponsorship, forget about the help coming from them, right? So it means that this is to show you the kind of mentorship you can get in this kind of generation. It is a kind of mentorship that only goes to people who has potential, right? So they tell you, if you can pass the exam, we'll sponsor your education. So what would now happen to those people who are not brilliant, that they cannot pass exam? What will happen to them? Nobody will sponsor their own education, right? So it means that those ones, they are on their own. So we can agree that those ones are on their own. Now, I don't mean to insult anybody. At least for someone to say they will volunteer to sponsor people's education, so at least it means that they have a good intention, right? They still have good intention. But I say what I say to describe the gap between David's mentorship back then and what we call mentorship support these days. The Bible said people who are in distress, people who are in debt, people who are discontented. This category of people, they are not people who are princes or heirs to the throne or sons of noblemen and women. Not this category of people. What about the days when the debt? Don't you know what usually happened to the debt and to people owing debt back then? Have you forgotten the son of the prophet that died, that was owing debts? Have you forgotten when the wife came to meet prophet Elijah, and then he said they're about to come and carry your, how did she put it? They said, I think she said that the debt collector is about to come and carry the son and take him as a slave. So this gives us a picture of what usually happens to debtors back then. So if you are owing debts, it's either they come and carry you or something associated to you, and then you become a slave in those days. So now, for David to now volunteer to mentor debtors, he said people who are in debt. So David, this kind of people, David still did not run away from it. He still volunteered to mentor them. So just imagine, there will be days inside that cave Adullam. There will be days when these people that they are owing the debts, when they will come and shout on them and say, you are the godfather of these debtors. You people should find our money immediately and give us our money. Just imagine the case. You don't think they will leave these debtors alone and not come and demand for their money? They will surely be coming. So, and I know that sometimes they will, I'm just picturing it, though the Bible did not say, but sometimes they will also threaten to expose David, because that it was at the time that Saul was seeking David's life. That was when he fled to the cave of Adullam, and then that was when debtors came to submit to him. So these debt collectors that are looking for their debtors, when they see them with David, don't you think they would threaten to expose David to Saul, because they will feel like it's David that is abhorring? Are you following? If you don't understand, if you don't understand what I'm saying, look for maybe someone you know very well that is owing Pampe money, a good amount of money, maybe like 100k. Then accommodate them. Accommodate them. My God. And accommodate them in your house, and let them not pay. So it's like there's something going around viral recently that all these Pampers, they usually go to the house of people that are owing them money and drag them. So let Pampe find a way to know that these people are in your house. So, and then let Pampe come and carry the people. Even if they don't carry, the shame alone that they came to carry a debtor from your place, the neighbors looking at you and seeing that you are associated with the person, that shame alone, you will feel somehow. Hope you get. But these are the kind of people that David associated himself with, and he eventually turned them to strong people. I don't know if you get what I'm explaining. Please, is God granting you understanding? So I hope God is blessing you. So as broken as these people are, David began to mentor them, and they became mighty men. It's easier when you begin to mentor people who already have dreams, people who already have visions, people who already have directions for their lives, and they are maybe aspiring to become bankers, pilots, lawyers, successful businessmen. People already have this kind of dreams, but it's a lot more harder when you find people who do not already have any vision and purpose for their lives, and you give them vision first, and as well as mentor them to become the best in their respective fields of life. So this is the quality of what David did, the quality of his mentorship. Mentoring 400 broken men is not beans. 400 broken people, 400 distressed, discontented, in debt, 400 people like that, mentoring them, and they became mighty men. And it's not the kind of mentorship where there is a kind of mentorship we do today. Okay, let me describe the kind of mentorship. The kind of mentorship today is mostly digital mentorship, right? So your mentees, they message you on phone, and then, or maybe as a mentor, maybe you have a social media where you post motivational content and context to people, and they go there, and then so there is distance between all of you. But this one, all of them, they were living together, eating and everything. They were under the same roof. Picture that kind of mentorship. They were under the same roof, living together. All the constraints and everything. So on a scale of 1 to 100, rate David as a mentor, right? So you can be dropping your rating on the comments. Now later on, I will tell you why I'm rating David and his performance. I will tell you. Number 8, David deals with building materials. So this can be found in 1 Chronicles chapter 28, verse 13 to 18. If you read that place, you will see how that David supplied gold, he supplied silver, and then he supplied every other materials that would be needed to build the house. David gave these things weight by weight. So how did he know the weight needed for them? Those weights are measurement. I hope you get it. So how did he know the measurements needed for each? So that you can know the level of expertise this also requires. If I tell you that I want to build the house and I show you the picture, will you be able to supply the kind of materials needed to build that house if you are not already experienced in that field? Because I know that some of you can be saying, so what is special in David supplying the materials that Solomon used to build the house, right? It is not special, right? Okay, now I'm telling you, I want to build a duplex. Oh yeah, supply the material. Without, don't go to Google, don't go anywhere to search for materials to build. So you begin to write it in your head. So that way you will know that this thing, it takes, you have to be an expert there. It takes a level of professionalism in that field. It is a field on its own too, for someone to gather materials that will be used for a building. So he didn't just give the plan. He didn't just give them the plan and the design and the patterns. He supplied the, where we discussed about him being an architect. That was where we see he gave the plan, he gave the design, he gave the materials, and he gave the patterns rather. He told them where the altar will be. But here he also supplied the building materials. So I hope we've done justice to that. Now, number 9, David as a psalmist. 2 Samuel chapter 23 verse 1. David as a psalmist. Now, these are the last words of David. Thus says David, the son of Jesse. Thus says the man raised up on high, the anointed of the God of Jacob, and the sweet psalmist of Israel. So you can see there, he was called the sweet psalmist of Israel. So here David was described as the sweet psalmist of Israel, and we know he wrote the books of Psalms. So to see that writing psalms and songs, also it's a field on its own. How many songs, how many psalms have you written? So you should know that it's a field on its own. So you don't have to be arguing on these things. So, and then everybody know him as a psalmist. So now David plays musical instrument. Number 10, David plays musical instrument. So David is not just an instrumentalist, but also an anointed one as well. Music is one of the things that are very spiritual on this earth. Music is spiritual. Do you know that music is one of the things that is able to easily alter men's spiritual and emotional posture? Several places in the Bible, you will see how that men will come under spiritual influence. Immediately they begin to play instruments. A prophet like Elisha, as powerful as he is, he will want to prophesy and he will say, bring me a minstrel. So prophets want to prophesy this, bring me a minstrel. And as soon as the minstrel start playing, the hand of the Lord will come upon him. That is you can find that in 2 Kings chapter 3 verse 15. So what is the relationship between when a minstrel is playing and the hand of God coming down upon someone? So even in Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar will set an image and we say, when you hear the sound of all sorts of instruments and music, then you should bow down. Now the question is, Nebuchadnezzar wants people to bow down for his image, right? But why did they still? Why must they still add instrument and music to it first before people can bow down? Maybe you want people to bow down for your image. Then you can just tell them to bow down straightforward. But this guy will say, when you hear instrument and music, that is when they should bow down. So you can see that they use music to accompany this spiritual event. This is their spiritual event. For you to know that music, there is a dimension of music that comes with anointing, either good or bad, either for good or bad. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. So now, do you know why they must still play music? Why they are still playing music? It's just to easily alter those people, their emotional state. It's to easily alter their emotional state so that they can bow for the image. You know that there are some dance you will not dance if you don't hear music playing. Do you know that? But when you hear music playing, there are some dance that you will easily dance. Even you yourself, you will not be able to. You may find out that you are doing it uncontrollably, or it's just like a reflex. You are doing it. You are just doing it. It's easy for you to do. So it's not as if you want to move like that, but the music that you are hearing is already altering your actions, your behaviors at that moment. This was why they needed music to accompany their bowing for their gods. So these people are very intelligent people. They knew what music does. They knew what it can do. That was why Nebuchadnezzar would say, when you hear sound of instrument and music, will bow down. So they still have to play music first. Now, when you enter into a nightclub, why is it that the kind of music they play is the kind that sexually arouses you? Music prepares your mood. One day, when we'll teach, we'll have a teaching on the spiritual dimensions of sounds and music later on. While we'll post it here. Make sure you follow, subscribe, and turn on notifications so that by the time I release it, you will see how powerful music and sounds is at the media. So, but that is not where we are going for now. Now, a man who is very intelligent will begin to hear a song that contains lyrics with all sorts of negativity, and he will begin to sing it helplessly. Now, let's go back to David. We saw how that whenever evil spirits come upon Saul, David will play on his instrument, and the evil spirit will leave Saul. So it's one thing to do music without anointing or spiritual influence, and it's another thing to do music with an anointing and spiritual backing and spiritual influence. So when you do music and you are being backed by an anointing, that is when you will see your rhythms altering men's spiritual and emotional posture. You are struggling to pray, but immediately you hear Minister Theophilus Sunday's music, your spirit man ascends and prayer becomes very easy. So because something began to alter your emotions and your spirit as soon as you begin to listen to the song, that is an example of men who do music with spiritual backing. So Saul will be under influence of evil spirits, just like you're also under the influence of prayerlessness. But when you hear Minister Theophilus Sunday song, you begin to, that prayerlessness goes away and you begin to pray. So same thing, Saul will be under the influence of evil spirits and he will begin to misbehave. But all of a sudden, when David plays the instruments, the spirit will now leave him. The spirit will leave Saul alone, and Saul will come back to normal. So what is happening there? You should know that it's no longer natural. So on a scale of 1 to 100, also rate David as as someone who plays musical instruments. Now, number 11. David as a warrior. A true warrior is someone who understands that there is a spiritual dimension to warfare. People who understand this and know how to solicit for spiritual advantage are the ones who are most likely to triumph in the days of battle. So you see a young man carry his 6 packs and huge chest to go and threaten one Baba somewhere in the village. So maybe they have a land dispute or something. You know how all these land disputes usually occur now. So and after the young man returned to his house, the Baba then enters inside. Then the Baba speaks some incantation and blows some powder. Then 3 days later, the young man, you hear that young man with 6 pack, he has become paralyzed where he is. So now, between the Baba that went to do incantation and the one that has 6 packs that is now paralyzed, who is a true warrior? Are you getting what I'm saying? That is why I said true warrior are the people who understand that there is a spiritual dimension to warfare. It is not by 6 packs. It is not by it is not by the physical appearance or whatever. So when David wanted to fight with Goliath, both of them were threatening each other. Now, if warfare is all about spiritual advantage, who was supposed to win? But David, a well-trained warrior who has taken time to gain mastery in the art of warfare, said to Goliath, "You can come to me with a sword, with a spear, and with a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied." This is 1 Samuel chapter 17 verse 45. And when David was saying all these things, he was soliciting for spiritual advantage. So that battle that took place between David and Goliath, it wasn't just physical, right? there was a spiritual backing that gave David victory. So you can see that even as a warrior, David still had an edge, right? Now, number 12, David as a king. In 1 Kings chapter 12 verse 4, we saw that after Solomon died, people didn't really like his tenure. So they came to Rehoboam, the son of Solomon. Rehoboam was the son of Solomon. Now, they told him, thy father made a yoke. I'm reading 1 Kings chapter 12 verse 14. Thy father made a yoke grievous. Now, therefore, make thou the grievous service of thy father, and his heavy yoke which he put upon us lighter, and we will serve thee. So they had to come and negotiate with Rehoboam and tell him that if it is, if he's going to use his father's templates to continue to rule them, that they will not serve him because his father's tenure was very hard. So now you would think that with all the wisdom and understanding God gave Solomon, because you know that God gave Solomon understanding, right? So you would think he would know how to undo his tenure in a way that even after he died, people will so much appreciate his government. Now let me remind you that earlier I said that understanding that Solomon asked for is the understanding for judgment. Understanding for judgment. So just the understanding to judge is different from understanding to govern. Government is different from judgment. I hope you get. So now you can understand how to judge a people or a territory. It doesn't mean you understand how to govern or rule a territory. If you know how to judge, so the fact that you know how to judge cases and resolve conflicts between two people, if you know how to do that one, you try. But how about economic affairs? How about health-related issues? How about academic advancement of the country? How about the health sector of your country, right? So, now, if not that God gave Solomon honor alongside, so now the fact that you know how to settle cases between two people doesn't mean that it will automatically advance every other sector, like the economic sector, like the banking sector, like the security aspect of the country, the public relationship aspect of the company. So every other aspect which has to do with good governance can be down if you don't have the understanding. So we know that the kind of understanding God gave Solomon was only understanding to judge. And you saw how he displayed it when two women came to him and said, blah blah blah, this is my son, this is not my son. Then he said, oh yeah, bring sword, cut them. So we know that place he operated there very well, right? So now, but even with this level of understanding, people still did not like his tenure. Now, but people do not like his tenure. What I want to say is that even though that God gave Solomon honor alongside the riches, the understanding and the wisdom that he gave him, maybe the people would have rebelled against Solomon while Solomon was still alive. But because God gave him honor is upon him. And one of the things that happens is that when honor is upon you, people submit to you. That's one of the things that happen. If God places honor on you, people will submit to you. So even if you don't like the current ruling president and you happen to meet him one-on-one right now, if you don't like who is ruling the country right now, once you meet him one-on-one, you will have no choice than to honor him and submit to him, right? So only God knows if maybe it is this honor that led people that caused them to be to shy away from confronting Solomon while he was alive. But when he died, they came to confront his son and say, your father's tenure was hard for us. So if you will continue to use your father's template, we will not serve you. You can see that they came to confront him. So comparing Solomon's kingship with David's kingship. Now let us compare Solomon's tenure while he was reigning to David's tenure while he was reigning. So in 2 Samuel chapter 19 verse 9 to 10, after Absalom died and his rebellion ended, the Absalom that rebelled against Solomon, after he died, the Bible said, and all the people were at strife throughout all the tribes of Israel, saying, the king saved us out of the hand of our enemies, and he delivered us out of the hand of the Philistines, and now he is fled out of the land for Absalom. Who is the king they are talking about? This is David. And Absalom, whom we anointed over us, is dead in battle. Now therefore, why speak ye not a word of bringing the king back? So after David was dethroned and fled from the town, the people now remembered all his labor over them. They remembered everything that David has done, just like you remember your former president and say, this president, it was during his tenure that we had light, that we had access to mobile phones, that we had access to, maybe a vice chancellor, or maybe director of a college or an institution, right? Then see this one when he was, or maybe a managing director of a company. You now see why this one was a managing director. We had access to, our salaries are being increased from time to time. We had access to allowances, all this and that. You remember them for that. Or maybe then they now brought another MD that he refused to give you allowance, refused to give you off, no leave, no off, just is being, even if you are going on leave, one more is like war. So you now compare the two together. So you will usually not want to experience the tenor of one of them again, and the other one you usually want to experience is tenor. So this was what is happening here. You can see that Solomon's tenor, they came to confront his son Rehoboam, but to Solomon's tenor, telling him that template of your father, if that is what you want to do, we will not serve you. But with David, even after David was being dethroned, they said, now therefore why speak ye not a word of bringing the king back? This is 2 Samuel 19 verse 10 that I read. So after David was dethroned and fled from the town, the people remembered all his labor over them, and saying, he delivered us from the Philistines, he delivered us from the enemies. So they were remembering him. They remembered him for the things he did. Then they now began to argue, and then they said to themselves, let us bring him back. So why? Because because he liked his tenor. This thing is simple. So if they do not like his tenor, they would have chosen someone else. Mind you, do not forget that some of these calamities that befell David, it had a spiritual cause as a result of the judgment that God proclaimed upon David in 2 Samuel verse 12, in 2 Samuel chapter 12 verse 10 to 11. But we are just examining the physical side to establish some facts. So now, if you are a leader over a nation, the proof that you successfully operated in your leadership office or failed in your leadership office is if people rejoice or grieve after you leave, right? If they rejoice or grieve after you leave, then that is a proof. So after Solomon died, we saw that people didn't like his tenor, so they had to go and confront his son. But David, they had to bring David back. They said bring David. They began to argue among themselves and say, let's bring David back, let's reinstall him. So that means even David as a king, he still did what? Performed well, more than, So you can also rate him like that. Now, David as a public figure. 1 Samuel chapter 18, verse 13 to 14. And verse 16. Now chapter in verse 13. Therefore Saul removed him from him and made him his captain over 1,000. And he went out and came in before the people. Verse 14. And David behaved to himself wisely in all his ways, and the Lord was with him. But all Israel and Judah loved David, because he went out and came in before them. Here we saw that Saul removed David from ministering unto him personally and made him captain over 1,000. So now initially David ministered only unto Saul, but when Saul appointed him as a captain over 1,000, David gained more visibility by reason of having to minister unto 1,000 people. So to enable you to understand this properly, if I used to work for the president as an entertainer, maybe to entertain him with a musical instrument whenever he feels bored, though I am associated with the president, though I work in the White House, yet I will still, not be famous. But if the president then decides to appoint me as Minister of Entertainment for the country, now by the reason of the new office I now occupy, majority of the time when there is any issue regarding entertainment in the country, you will begin to hear my name here and there, because I am in charge of the office that oversees entertainment. So I will begin to have a higher level of visibility because I'm now the Minister of Entertainment in the country, unlike when I only serve the president in the White House. So this was what happened with David. When David was ministering unto Saul alone, not much people know him, but Saul now eventually removed him and then appointed him over 1,000. So now, though I was in the White House, but nobody will know me except for a few that come for a visit to the White House. But as soon as I become Minister of Entertainment, you will begin to hear my name in national news. More people will know me. So when David became captain over 1,000, he began to have more level of visibility. Now in his visibility didn't end there. Later on in verse 16, we will see how that all Israel and Judah loved David because he went out and came in before them. So from being a captain over just 1,000 to becoming a man loved by the whole nation of Israel. So that was what made him become a public figure. So Amplified Version said he associated himself publicly with them. This is verse 16 now. Verse 16 of the 1 Samuel chapter 18 verse 16. But all Israel and Judah loved David rather, because he went out and came in for them. Amplified said because he associated himself publicly with them. So all of them now loved him. So from being a captain over 1,000 to being loved by everyone. So now you can be a public figure and yet not be well behaved. But in 1 Samuel chapter 18 verse 14,
the Bible recorded that David behaved himself wisely in all his ways. So while David was fast rising into fame, he began to engage wisdom in all his ways. It is one thing to become a famous person. It is another thing to send yourself packing back to village because of your foolishness. Do you get? So you can be foolish, arrogant, and lack understanding to maintain your relevance or to continue being relevant among people. That is why you see some celebrities today that they don't know how to behave, and then because of their foolishness and because they don't know how to behave, their fame comes down quickly. Their fans begin to hate them. So that is one of the things that is happening here. So we have seen people who rose to stardom all of a sudden, and everybody was shouting their names here and there. So they became the trends. But today, if you mention their names, it will be as if people are even trying to brainstorm to remember where exactly they are, because they do not know the secrets to maintaining relevance continuously. So, but David, he knew these secrets and he dealt wisely in all his ways. So for David, being a public figure, he also performed well in that part, right? So it's not easy for people while working in a public office and all the whole country, they begin to love you, because the Bible said the whole Judah, all Judah. Let's take it again. But all Israel and Judah loved him. So all the country, they loved him. So that is that about that. David as a prophet. 1 Chronicles chapter 28 verse 12. And the pattern of all that he had by the Spirit, of the courts of the house of the Lord, and of all the chambers round about, of the treasuries of the house of God, and of the treasuries of the dedicated things. So here we saw how that David received the patterns of the house of this by the Spirit. He received the patterns of the house by the Spirit. Though Amplified and a few other versions interpreted it to mean the pattern that David had in mind. But if you read further to verse 19, you will see how that David further established that he received understanding of the pattern in writing by the hand of the Lord upon him. And both Amplified and KJV communicated it the same way, that it was the hand, it was through the hand of the Lord that David received understanding of the pattern. So for the hand of the Lord to be involved, which led to David having writings that give him understanding of the pattern of the house, it means something prophetic happened. And with these facts being established, it means that KJV, which says that David had the pattern by the Spirit, is most accurate, right? Is the most accurate rendition for that account. So now the pattern was not just something David conceived in his mind. No, unlike other versions say that he conceived it in his mind. No, he didn't, because if David said he received understanding of it by writing, so it means something prophetic there is happening. Now, in this generation, we see people who operate in the prophetic, and they are trying to call a phone number, ordinary phone number. God have mercy on me. I don't mean to talk to anybody. So, but people operate in the prophetic, and they are trying to call a phone number for you or a house address, and you can see the struggle to communicate something as just as little as a phone number. Now, with all respect and humility, I'm not being disrespectful to any office or to that office for any reason. Now, but the reason why it is so is that why it is difficult for people to call phone numbers or house addresses is that these things, that spiritual things, are very volatile. You can see something right now and forget immediately the next moment. So if you see visions a lot, you will understand what I'm saying. Now, this is why you see people carry book and pen to quickly write what God showed them when they go to the secret place. Now, but David received the old blueprints of a whole house by the Spirit, and he still remembered everything. He remembered the design, he remembered the patterns, he remembered the chambers, and so on. And he was even able to describe everything accurately to Solomon. So that is some very accurate level of the prophetic that David operated in. So it was very accurate. So now there are many other roles David played in his lifetime, but let's just let him be. And then these ones that I shared in this teaching, it should be enough to establish my points that man can do a lot with his time. And for all this, 1 Chronicles chapter 29 verse 29 to 30 said, now the acts of David king, first and last, behold, they are written in the book of Samuel the seer, and in the book of Nathan the prophet, and in the book of Gad the seer. Now verse 30, with all his reign and his might, and the times that went over him, and over Israel, and over all the kingdoms of the countries. So in these two verses, in 1 Chronicles chapter 29 verse 29 and 30, in these two verses, we see how the Bible summarized everything that David did in his lifetime by saying, now the acts of David the king, first and last, So that was, Chronicles giving a summary of the entire lifetime of David. So, which means from the very first significant thing that David did to the very last, it was recorded in the book of Samuel, Nathan, and Gad. The book of Samuel, the book of Nathan, and the book of Gad. Now, guess what? Now, in verse 30 of that place, we saw how the Bible summarized everything that was recorded for David that he did. He summarized into times by saying, with all his reign and his might, and the times that went over him. This is verse 30. So same way, if someone else who served loyally and diligently in one small office somewhere, if they die and they were to give an account of his life, then they will see this person served diligently under his boss with the times that went over him, or with his entire lifetime, he served diligently under his boss. Whereas if another person that did 15 different relevant things in his life die, and they had to give an account of his lifetime, just like they give an account of David's life, they will say this person did this and did that and did this and did that with all his times that went over him, or with his entire time. You can see the difference now. What I'm saying is that, let's say there are two people. One works in an office serving loyally under a boss, and another one is doing different things, up to 15 different things together, and they now both died. If they are to give an account of the life of the two, the one that served diligently under his boss, they will say this guy served diligently under his boss, right? And then the one that did 15 different things, the one that was a mentor, the one that was a mentor, at the same time a teacher, at the same time a philanthropist, at the same time a tutor, at the same time maybe a musician. If they are to give an account of the life of that one, they will say all the times that passed over him, this was what he used the times and for, just like they give an account of a summary of David's life. So now when you are looking at the summary of these two different people, we see that one is heavier than the other, right? So now the question is, between the one that the other one that served his boss and did only one relevant thing in the entire life, and someone who did 15 different relevant things, who played 15 different roles in his entire lifetime, which one of them truly maximized time? Which one of them truly maximized time? Which one of them truly cheated time? So when David was acting as a father, acting as a warrior, playing the role of a king, acting as a shepherd, acting as a psalmist, and so on, he was actually maximizing his time. So whether a soul will hear, well done, thou good and faithful servant, will also be a question of how well, whether you will hear, well done, thou good and faithful servant. So it will be a question of how well you maximize your time given to you here on earth. You know that there is this saying and how society used to attack people who are trying to do several things in their lifetime. So we usually call them jack of all trades. So when we see someone do something today and later migrates to another thing, then we call them jack of all trades, master of none, because we believe they can never gain masteries like that. And it's true to some extent that some of these people never gain mastery. But whereas we have successfully captured David, doing a whole lot of relevant things with his life, and he did them excellently well in all of them. That was why I was rating him, and I was telling you to rate him. So now this now leads us to a question of how was he able to do a lot, and he still did them excellently, still performed well in all these roles he played. So this will lead us to part 3 of this message. So we'll treat part 3 and we'll upload it here soon. So thank you and God bless.